That night, my mother-in-law unexpectedly joined me at the restaurant I'd reserved. Before she could even sit down, our waiter froze, his face draining of color as he whispered, "She uses a fake name here and once paid me to do something dirty you need to know about right now." Within 30 minutes, a secret that had been festering for 10 years of my marriage unraveled hidden accounts, fake medical bills, and an accident that nearly killed me 2 years ago, which wasn't an accident at all. That night, I didn't run. I began planning my revenge clean, legal, precise, forcing everyone to expose themselves at the very dinner table they'd orchestrated. My name is Eva Hart, and I'd chosen Timber and Thyme specifically for its warm amber lighting and pine wood beams neutral territory where Dylan and I could finally address the elephant in our marriage, his mother's suffocating presence. The rain tapped against the windows as I waited, breathing in the scent of rosemary bread and aged wood polish. I'd rehearsed my talking points a dozen times. Margaret had been helping with our finances, organizing our medical appointments, and dropping by with increasing frequency. Tonight, Dylan and I would set boundaries. Then she walked in. Margaret Hale stood in the doorway wearing her signature cream trench coat, diamond studs catching the tungsten glow as she scanned the dining room. My stomach dropped. Dylan hadn't even arrived yet, and somehow she knew exactly where and when we'd be dining. "Eva, darling." She glided over, air kissing my cheek with practiced precision. "Dylan mentioned you two were having dinner. I was in the neighborhood. What perfect timing." The waiter approaching our table stopped mid-stride. Luis, I recognized him from his nameplate, stood frozen, water pitcher trembling slightly in his grip. His olive complexion had gone ashen, eyes darting between Margaret and me like a trapped animal. "Good evening," he managed, voice strained. "Can I start you with some water?" Margaret settled into the chair across from me, movements fluid as silk, sparkling, room temperature, no ice. Luis poured my water first, leaning close enough that I could smell his cologne, something sharp and nervous. His hand shook, sending droplets across the white tablecloth. As he moved to fill Margaret's glass, he whispered so quietly I almost missed it. 2 years ago, she paid me $500 to spike someone's drink. The reservation was under E. Hart. The restaurant noise faded to white static. My fingers found the stem of my water glass, gripping it to stop my hands from visibly shaking. 2 years ago. The incident flashed back driving home from my company dinner. Sudden dizziness, my vision fracturing into prisms, the sedan veering toward the median. The diagnosis of stress-induced hypoglycemia that never quite made sense. "Luis, you're spilling," Margaret observed coolly, dabbing water spots with her napkin. Her eyes never left his face. "Perhaps you should send someone steadier." "My apologies, ma'am." Luis straightened, but before leaving, he placed the check presenter on our table, odd, since we hadn't ordered yet. Inside, barely visible, was a torn receipt corner with Bao 73 MH scrawled in pen. Dylan arrived 15 minutes late, kissing his mother's cheek before pecking mine. "Sorry, traffic was brutal. Mom, what a surprise. I couldn't resist when I heard you two were having your little date." Margaret's smile could have been painted on porcelain. "Besides, we should discuss the Northline situation together, as a family." My promotion. She knew about my promotion before I'd told Dylan. Throughout appetizers, I studied her the calculated way she steered conversation, how she touched Dylan's arm to emphasize points, the subtle dismissals when I spoke. Luis orbited our table like a moth around flame, refilling water obsessively, his guilt radiating in waves. When Margaret excused herself to the powder room, Luis dropped a black leather check folder beside my plate. Inside, a faded Venmo screenshot showing a $500 payment from M. Hartley, 58, with the note "Catering Assistance." The date matched my accident exactly. The old security footage from Rosewood Tavern where I worked. He whispered urgently. "They keep backups for 24 months. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She said it was just vitamins, that you needed them but wouldn't take them." After your accident, I knew. Margaret's heels clicked across the hardwood. Luis vanished into the kitchen. I slipped the screenshot into my purse, mind racing. The hypoglycemia. The medical bills I never scrutinized. Margaret's insistence on handling our insurance claims because I was too shaken to deal with paperwork. Everything all right, dear? Margaret settled back into her seat. You look pale. Just tired. I manufactured a smile, though inside, tumblers were clicking into place. Every controlling behavior, every boundary violation, every helpful intervention, it wasn't motherly concern. It was something far darker. As Dylan and Margaret debated wine pairings, I made my decision. I wouldn't confront them tonight. I wouldn't rage or accuse or demand answers. Instead, I would gather every thread of evidence, every document, every witness, and when I finally struck back, it would be here, at this very table, with the truth served as precisely as any course Luis would deliver. I raised my water glass, meeting Margaret's eyes. To family. She smiled, that perfect predatory smile. To family. Back home. I waited until Dylan's breathing deepened into snores before slipping out of bed. The filing cabinet in our home office held 10 years of meticulous records tax returns, insurance claims, medical bills. I'd always prided myself on organization. But tonight, I was hunting for discrepancies. The medical folder from 2 years ago was thicker than I remembered. Everpine Medical Group had issued a series of adjustment statements following my accident treatments I supposedly received but couldn't recall. Cognitive therapy sessions at $300 each, specialized blood work for hormonal imbalances, a consultation with a psychiatrist I'd never met, diagnosing me with acute stress disorder with dissociative episodes. My hands trembled as I photographed each document. The emergency contact on half these forms had been changed from Dylan to Margaret. Her flowing signature appeared as authorized representative on insurance claims totaling $37,000. The house's smart lock app showed Margaret's entry code being used 43 times in the past 6 months, always when I was at work. Our joint savings account had irregular withdrawals, small amounts that coincided with her visits. 500 here, 300 there, always just below the notification threshold I'd set. Can't sleep. Dylan stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. I closed the folder carefully. Just reviewing some old medical bills. Did you know your mother filed insurance claims after my accident? She was helping out? His tone turned defensive, a reflex I'd seen countless times. You were pretty out of it. Eva, Mom handled things so you could focus on recovering. From hypoglycemia. From the trauma. You don't remember how bad it was, the paranoia, the mood swings. Mom found that specialist, Dr. Morrison, who really helped. Dr. Morrison. Another name I didn't recognize. I pulled up the statement. This says I saw him 8 times. You did. Dylan moved closer, concern creasing his features. Eva, you were taking medication that made you foggy. Mom drove you to appointments because you couldn't drive after what happened. Except I had been driving. To work, to groceries, everywhere except these phantom appointments. The dates aligned with Margaret's smart lock entries and team meetings I'd supposedly called in sick for meetings my boss never mentioned me missing. Show me the medication, I said quietly. What? The medication that made me foggy. Where is it? Dylan's jaw tightened. You stopped taking it months ago. Mom probably disposed of the bottles. Of course she had. I found our medicine cabinet inventory, a shared spreadsheet Margaret had insisted on creating, for emergency purposes. The medication history showed prescriptions I'd never filled, picked up by Margaret using her medical power of attorney, a document I didn't remember signing. My laptop revealed more breadcrumbs, emails in my sent folder I didn't write, declining a promotion opportunity citing health concerns, calendar appointments for wellness checks that corresponded with Margaret's visits. My work evaluation from that period mentioned uncharacteristic emotional volatility reported by an anonymous colleague. The digital forensics painted a clear picture Margaret had been building a case for my instability. One document at a time. I found a text thread between Dylan and his mother from the week after my accident. Margaret: the doctor agrees she needs comprehensive treatment. Dylan: she seems fine to me. Margaret: that's what your father said before his breakdown. Do you want to lose Eva the way we lost him? His father's death a heart attack. I'd been told. But this suggested something else entirely. In the garage, I located the box of receipts from 2 years ago, between grocery lists and gas station slips. I found it a receipt from Nature's Wellness for specialized vitamin supplements, paid in cash, dated 3 days before my accident. The handwriting on the note section was Margaret's distinctive loops, E.H., daily regimen as discussed. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Louise. I remembered something else. She came back 2 weeks ago, asking about another job. Said she needed someone reliable to handle a delicate situation. I said no, but she found someone else. Please be careful. I screenshot everything, uploaded it to 3 different cloud services, and emailed copies to my personal attorney, a precaution Margaret didn't know about. By 4:15 a.m., I'd assembled a timeline. The vitamin supplements, the spiked drink, the accident that provided justification for medical intervention, the systematic documentation of my supposed instability, the insurance money funding God knows what, and now, Louise's warning about a new plot in motion. Dylan found me at the kitchen table at sunrise, surrounded by papers. We need to talk about your mother, I said. Eva, you're scaring me. This looks like... He gestured at the spread of documents. This looks like paranoia. Perfect. Even now, Margaret's groundwork held firm. Any accusation I made would seem like the ravings of an unstable woman. She'd built the perfect trap, one that tightened the more I struggled against it. But she'd made one mistake. She'd gone back to Louise, leaving a trail. And if she was planning something new, I'd be ready this time. You're right, I said, gathering the papers. I'm probably overthinking. Why don't we have dinner with your mother this weekend? Somewhere nice. My treat. Dylan's relief was palpable. That would mean a lot to her. And to me. I smiled, already composing the reservation email in my head. Same restaurant, same table. But this time, I'd be serving the courses. The Fort Collins Police Department's East Precinct smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Detective Kara Bledsoe sat across from me, her weathered hands wrapped around a ceramic mug that read, World's Okayest Detective. She'd listened to my story without interruption, occasionally jotting notes in margins already crowded with previous cases. Mrs. Hart, she began carefully, what you're describing if true falls into a gray area. The statute of limitations on assault is 2 years, and we're right at that line, without physical evidence of the actual tampering. I have the Venmo receipt, the witness, the medical fraud documents. You have circumstantial evidence and a witness who participated in the alleged crime. She leaned back, chair creaking. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying prosecution would be nearly impossible. However, she pulled out a business card. Document everything. If she makes another move, call me immediately. Sometimes these people get overconfident. Disappointment must have shown on my face because she added, the medical fraud angle might interest the insurance investigators, and if you're planning what I think you're planning, keep it legal. Recording laws in Colorado require single-party consent. You can record your own conversations. My next stop was Brewster's Cafe, where Tara Quinn waited in our usual corner booth. My closest colleague had noticed my absence during those appointments 2 years ago, but hadn't pressed when I returned, seeming fine. You never missed those meetings, Tara confirmed, sliding her tablet across the table. Look, I keep detailed notes. Every Tuesday 10 a.m. Status meeting you were there. But Margaret called HR 3 times that year. She pulled up an email thread. Said you were struggling with family medical issues and might need reduced responsibilities. She called my workplace from a number HR didn't recognize, but get this, Tara highlighted a passage. She specifically mentioned you were seeing Dr. Morrison for emotional regulation issues and provided documentation. HR forwarded it to your supervisor with a recommendation to monitor your performance. The anonymous complaint about my emotional volatility suddenly made sense. Margaret hadn't just been building a medical case, she'd been poisoning my professional reputation. There's more, Tara continued. Last month, someone called asking about your promotion package. Claimed to be from a background verification service. They wanted to know about your stability and reliability under pressure. I thought it was weird, so I reported it to security. My phone buzzed. Luis, can we meet? I found something. An hour later, I sat with Luis at a food truck picnic table, the smell of diesel and tacos mixing in the afternoon air. He looked exhausted, purple shadows under his eyes. After you left that night, I couldn't stop thinking. He pulled out his phone. I went through my old photos from Rosewood Tavern. Look. The image showed a grainy security monitor screenshot he'd taken during a shift. Margaret stood at the bar, but the timestamp made my blood chill 3:45 the morning of my accident. She'd been there hours before my random hypoglycemic episode. There's a bartender who worked that shift, Tommy Reeves. He remembers her asking detailed questions about dissolved medications, how long they take to metabolize. She said it was for a mystery novel she was writing. Would Tommy testify to that? Luis nodded. He's clean now, but back then he was dealing with his own stuff. He remembers because she tipped him $200 for research assistance. I documented everything, building my digital fortress of evidence. But I needed more than defensive preparations. At home that evening, I called Margaret. Eva, darling, how are you feeling? Much better. Actually, I wanted to apologize for being distant lately. Dylan mentioned you've been worried about me. Oh, sweetheart, I just want what's best for you both. Her voice dripped manufactured concern. Have you been taking care of yourself? Actually, I've been seeing someone. A therapist, working through some old patterns. The pause stretched just long enough to be telling. That's wonderful. Anyone I might know. Dr. Patricia Morse. She's helped me realize I need to be more accepting of family support. I'm so glad to hear that. Relief colored her tone. Dr. Morse was real. I'd found her in Margaret's contacts, though I'd never actually booked an appointment. You know, we should celebrate your progress. Perhaps dinner this weekend. I already made reservations. Timber and Time. Saturday at 7. The same table where Dylan proposed. I thought it would be meaningful. How thoughtful. I'll be there. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began composing an email to the restaurant manager. I'd need permissions for what I was planning. The recording equipment would require consent. The police presence would need coordination. Luis texted again. She contacted me today. Offered $1,000 to put something in Dylan's drink this time. Said he needs medical intervention for addiction issues. I played along and recorded the call. My hands stilled on the keyboard. She was escalating, targeting her own son now. Whatever twisted narrative she was constructing, Dylan had become an obstacle to it. I forwarded Luis's message to Detective Bledsoe with a simple note. She's making another move. The detective's response came within minutes. Keep that dinner reservation. I'll be there. The pieces were aligning. Margaret thought she was walking into another manipulation, another chance to document my instability or Dylan's supposed addiction. Instead, she'd be walking into a carefully laid trap of her own making. The Timber and Time manager, Robert Henley, listened to my request with the careful attention of someone who'd weathered enough restaurant drama to recognize when something serious was unfolding. His office smelled of leather and coffee, afternoon light filtering through blinds onto certificates of excellence. "You're asking to turn my dining room into a sting operation," he said slowly. "I'm asking for permission to record a conversation at my own table, with minimal disruption to other guests." I placed Detective Bledsoe's business card on his desk. She's already confirmed she'll be present as a regular patron. Luis volunteered to serve our table. He feels obligated to make things right. Robert studied the card. Then me. Luis told me everything yesterday. Broke down in the walk-in cooler. He's a good kid who made a terrible mistake. He sighed. The VIP section can be yours. It's semi-private, good acoustics. I'll comp the tables around you to keep them empty. Thank you. I need one more thing permission to use your sound system briefly. Just for 30 seconds. His eyebrows rose, but he nodded. Don't burn down my restaurant. Mrs. Hart. I spent Friday preparing my tools. The micro recorder, disguised as a decorative pen, had 8 hours of battery life and could capture whispers from 6 feet away. A button camera, small as an aspirin, would nestle in the centerpiece flowers. Robert would ensure our table had a special arrangement. My phone would serve as backup, recording from my purse. The real masterpiece was the document portfolio. I assembled copies of every fraudulent medical claim, the insurance paperwork, Luis's recordings, Tommy's statement, even screenshots of Margaret's entry logs. Each page laminated, ordered chronologically, building an irrefutable narrative. I scheduled an email to Dylan for 8:15 p.m. Saturday mid-dinner containing digital copies of everything. Subject line, the truth about your mother. If Margaret somehow prevented me from exposing her at dinner, the evidence would still reach him. Saturday arrived gray and humid, the air thick with approaching storm. I chose my outfit carefully, a black dress Margaret had once called severe, paired with the pearl necklace Dylan gave me on our 5th anniversary. Professional, credible, not the disheveled paranoid woman Margaret had tried to paint me as. You look beautiful, Dylan said, adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror. Mom will be pleased we're making an effort. Actually, I have news that might affect both of them, I said, testing the waters. Northline is offering me a senior director position. It comes with significant equity, vesting over 4 years. His face lit up. Ava, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to be sure. The paperwork isn't final yet. I watched his reflection carefully. Your mother's been asking about my career trajectory. I thought we could share the news together. She'll be thrilled. She's always saying you don't aim high enough. The criticism wrapped in false encouragement. Classic Margaret. At 6:45, we arrived at Timber and Time. Robert greeted us personally, leading us to the VIP section where soft jazz played and rain began pattering against windows. The centerpiece white orchids in a crystal vase held my tiny camera perfectly. Luis appeared, professional despite the tension in his shoulders. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Your usual table, as requested. Luis, I said warmly, loud enough for Dylan to hear. So nice to see you again. Isn't this where you used to work before? At Rosewood. Yes, ma'am. 2 years ago. He met my eyes steadily. Before I came here. Dylan missed the undercurrent, studying the wine list. I activated the pen recorder, placing it prominently beside my menu. My phone, already recording, rested in my open purse. Margaret arrived at 7:05, fashionably late, wearing winter white despite the season of power play, drawing every eye as she glided through the dining room. She'd had her hair done, nails freshly manicured. This was her victory lap. My darlings, she air-kissed us both, settling into her chair with practiced grace. Eva, you're glowing. The therapy must be working wonders. It's been illuminating, I agreed. I've been reflecting on patterns, how small actions compound into life-changing moments. She smiled, missing the warning. How philosophical. Dylan, you must be so proud of Eva's growth. Speaking of growth, Dylan interjected, excitement bubbling. Eva has news. Oh, Margaret's attention sharpened. I let the moment stretch, savoring it. Northline is offering me senior director. The equity package is substantial, 6 figures annually, potentially 7 with bonuses. Margaret's mask slipped for just a second, raw calculation flashing across her features. Then the smile returned, wider now. That's wonderful, dear. Though such positions come with tremendous stress. Are you sure you're ready, given your history? My history. Your episodes, darling. The hypoglycemia, the emotional challenges. We wouldn't want you to relapse under pressure. Perfect. She'd taken the bait, bringing up the medical narrative herself. I glanced at Luis, who stood by the service station, waiting. He knew his cue was coming. You're right, Margaret. We should discuss my medical history. I pulled the portfolio from beside my chair. All of it. The first drops of her composure began to evaporate as she recognized the folder, the same type she'd used to file fraudulent claims. Before we celebrate, I said, opening the portfolio, I've been curious about something. Margaret. When Dylan's father died, how long was he ill? The question caught her off guard. Dylan straightened, confused by the sudden shift. Richard had a heart attack, Margaret replied curtly. You know this. But you texted Dylan about preventing his breakdown, about not losing me the way you lost Richard. I produced the screenshot. That suggests something longer, more complex. Dylan took the paper, color draining from his face. Mom, what does this mean? Margaret's fingers tightened on her wine glass. Your father had struggles, depression. I tried to help him, but he refused treatment. The stress caused his heart attack. Is that what happened? I asked. Or did you help him the way you helped me? Ava, you're being dramatic. Richard Hart's medical records. I pulled another document. I had my attorney request them through probate court. Fascinating reading. Prescribed antipsychotics 6 months before his death. Dr. Morrison's signature. The same Dr. Morrison who supposedly treated me for 8 sessions. I don't remember. Dylan grabbed the papers, scanning frantically. These medications. Dad never took these. He was against psychiatric drugs. He watched his brother suffer through wrong prescriptions for years. Your father was sick, Margaret insisted, but her voice had lost its silk. Was he, or did you make him sick? I turned to Dylan. Your mother has been drugging people for years, building paper trails, creating medical narratives to control or eliminate anyone who threatens her vision of family. That's absurd. Luis approached our table, carrying a water pitcher he didn't need to refill. Mrs. Hale, he said quietly. Or should I say Mrs. Hartley. That's the name you used at Rosewood. Margaret went rigid. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, though. Luis's hands trembled, but his voice held steady. Just like you knew what you were asking when you offered me $1,000 yesterday to put something in Dylan's drink. What? Dylan's voice cracked. I pulled out my phone, playing Luis's recording. Margaret's voice filled the space. He's showing signs of addiction, erratic behavior. He needs intervention before it's too late. Just a mild sedative in his wine. I'll handle the rest. You recorded me. Margaret's composure finally cracked. That's illegal. Single-party consent state, I said calmly. Luis was free to record his own conversation. Dylan stood abruptly, chair scraping. You were going to drug me your own son. You've been distant, influenced by her? Margaret pointed at me, mask fully discarded now. Just like your father was influenced by his work, his friends, everyone but family. I was protecting you. Protecting? Dylan's voice rose. Like you protected Dad. Your father was leaving me. The words exploded from Margaret. 23 years of marriage and he wanted a divorce. Said I was suffocating him. Said he'd rather live in a studio apartment than spend another day in my manufactured life. The admission hung between us, raw and ugly. Other diners glanced our way, but the semi-private section muffled most of our conversation. So you killed him, Dylan whispered. I saved him from himself. The medications were supposed to help, make him more compliant, more manageable. The heart attack was unexpected. I pulled out more documents. Except it wasn't. These medications, in combination, significantly increase cardiac risk. Any doctor would know that. You researched your search history from that period, subpoenaed during the insurance investigation they're reopening. Margaret's face had gone pale. You can't prove anything. Tommy Reeves remembers you, Luis added, asking about dissolving medications, how long they stay in someone's system. You said it was for a novel. And then there's the money, I continued. $37,000 in insurance claims for my treatment. Your lifestyle exceeded Dylan's father's pension by $60,000 annually, yet you've maintained it for 5 years. Where did the money come from? Margaret. Mom. Dylan's voice was hollow. The life insurance. You said Dad had a small policy. $1.2 million, I supplied. Doubled for accidental death. You've been living off your dead husband while plotting to do the same to me. When I became too stable, too successful, you shifted focus to Dylan. What was the plan? Have him committed. Gain power of attorney control, the inheritance, and my promotion money. Margaret stood slowly, dignified even in exposure. You can't prove intent, any of it. I'm a concerned mother who made some documentation errors. That's all. Maybe, I conceded, but Detective Bledsoe might disagree. Margaret's eyes darted to the bar where Kara Bledsoe sat, badge visible on her belt, watching our table with professional interest. You called the police. Margaret's voice pitched higher. I called everyone. I pulled out the final document. This is a cease and desist letter from my attorney. Come near me again, and I'll file for a restraining order. The insurance company is opening a fraud investigation based on the evidence I've provided. The medical board will be reviewing Dr. Morrison's license. Yes, he's real. And yes, he's been taking bribes to create false records. Dylan hadn't moved, still processing the revelation that his mother had murdered his father and tried to do the same to me. Dylan, baby. Margaret reached for him, but he stepped back. Don't. His voice was stone. Don't ever touch me again. I'm your mother. Everything I did was for you. Everything you did was for control. He looked at me, tears streaming. Eva, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. Should have protected you. Margaret laughed, sharp and bitter. Protect her. She's manipulated this entire scene. Can't you see she's turned you against me with her paranoid delusions? Stop! Dylan's voice cut through her performance. Just stop. Dad was right. You do manufacture everything. Luis stepped forward, placing a leather check folder on the table with shaking hands. The evidence you asked for, Mrs. Hart. Margaret's eyes locked onto the folder like a snake watching a mongoose. Inside lay the printed Venmo transaction. The damning $500 from M. Hartley 58 dated exactly 2 years ago. This proves nothing, she said, but her voice wavered. Anyone could have used that account. I pulled out the second piece, a grainy but unmistakable security photo from Rosewood Tavern. 3:45 a.m., the morning of my accident. You're at the bar, Margaret, exchanging an envelope with Luis. The timestamp matches your Venmo payment perfectly. Coincidence. And this, I produced receipt number 73MAH. Your handwriting. E.H. Daily regimen as discussed. From Nature's Wellness. 3 days before you paid Luis. Dylan picked up each piece of evidence, studying them with the methodical focus he usually reserved for network diagnostics. Mom, your car's GPS would have logged that trip to Rosewood, if Eva gets a warrant. They'd also find the email you sent from your iPad, I added, pulling up another document. Logged into my account using the password you shoulder surfed, declining a promotion opportunity, citing health concerns I never had. Margaret's composure crumbled incrementally, like watching erosion in fast forward. That's illegal access. From my own email account, no, but unauthorized access using stolen credentials is. I smiled coldly. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Dylan explained it to me last night when I showed him the login logs. You showed him before dinner. Margaret's voice pitched higher. This morning, actually, Dylan's tone was hollow. She wanted to give me a chance to defend you, to explain the discrepancies, but there were too many. Mom, the timing, the money, the medical records. I pulled out my phone, swiping to a saved voicemail. "This is you, Margaret. 2 days before my accident." I hit play. Margaret's recorded voice filled the space. "Eva, darling, don't forget your vitamins. I left them on your kitchen counter. The blue ones, specifically. And please don't drive if you feel any dizziness. Promise me. I'd never forgive myself if something happened." "You knew," Dylan breathed. "You knew what those pills would do." I was concerned. "You were setting up plausible deniability." I pulled out another document. "These are the actual vitamins you left. I had them tested yesterday. Benzodiazepines mixed with glucose disruptors. Enough to cause exactly the symptoms I experienced." Louise couldn't stay quiet anymore. "She told me they were just vitamins, that Mrs. Hart needed them but wouldn't take them voluntarily. I was young, stupid, needed the money. But after the accident, when I heard about her hypoglycemia, I knew what I'd done." "And yet you said nothing." Margaret spat at him. "I was terrified. You had something on me, photos from a party where I was using. You said you'd send them to immigration, get me deported." Another piece clicked into place. I pulled up Margaret's social media from that period. "Interesting timing. You attended a pharmaceutical conference 2 months before my accident, networking with innovative minds in therapeutic solutions. The keynote speaker, Dr. Morrison." Margaret's hands gripped the table edge. "Stop! The same Dr. Morrison who treated your husband, who signed my phantom treatment papers, who's currently under investigation for taking bribes." I leaned forward. "Did you plan Richard's death at that conference too?" "You know nothing about Richard." "I know he filed for divorce." Another document appeared. "The papers were never processed, filed 2 weeks before his death, withdrawn by you as next of kin after he died." Dylan made a sound like he'd been punched. "He was leaving you. He was confused. Work stress. He needed help. He needed freedom." I corrected. "Your brother-in-law, James. I called him yesterday. Richard had been staying with him, planning to move out. He'd opened his own bank account, started apartment hunting. He told James you were psychologically terrorizing him. James is an alcoholic. 3 years sober, actually. Very clear memories of Richard's final months. He's willing to testify." The color had completely drained from Margaret's face. Around us, the restaurant continued its normal rhythm, unaware of the family destruction unfolding in our corner. "The router logs," Dylan said suddenly, voice mechanical, dissociated. "You used our Wi-Fi. Every device leaves a fingerprint." "Mom, if they check the logs from when you accessed Eva's email, when you researched those drugs, when you contacted Dr. Morrison?" "It's all there," I confirmed. "Time-stamped, IP-tracked. Your digital DNA all over a conspiracy to commit assault, fraud, and possibly murder." Margaret stood abruptly. "I'm leaving." "No," Dylan said quietly. "You're not. Not until we finish this." She turned on him, mask fully gone, revealing something feral underneath. "You ungrateful child. Everything I sacrificed for you. The life I built after your father's selfishness. And you side with her. Dad wasn't selfish. He was suffocated." Dylan's voice cracked. "And you killed him for wanting to breathe." Margaret laughed, sharp and bitter. "Prove it. Prove any of it in court. I'll have lawyers who will tear apart every piece of this so-called evidence." "Maybe," I conceded. "But the insurance company doesn't need beyond reasonable doubt. They just need sufficient cause to investigate." "And Margaret," I smiled. "They really don't like fraud." Detective Bledsoe had moved closer, hovering at the edge of earshot, hand resting casually on her radio. "One more thing," I added, pulling out the final document. "Luis wasn't the only one you approached recently. You contacted 3 other restaurant workers this month. One of them, Sophie Martinez, recorded your offer. $5,000 to put something in my wine during my promotion celebration next week." Margaret went still. A prey animal recognizing the trap had already sprung. I slid the Northline Biosolutions letterhead across the table my promotion offer in black and white. Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives. Base salary $300,000, equity vesting $1.5 million over 4 years, signing bonus $75,000. Margaret's eyes devoured the numbers, pupils dilating with undisguised hunger. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" I continued. "Not just Dylan's father's money, but mine too. A perpetual income stream from your controlled, medicated family members. You're delusional." "Am I?" I pulled up an email on my tablet. "This is from my CEO, sent yesterday, confirming they received an anonymous tip about my mental health struggles and reliability concerns. The IP address traces to the coffee shop on Magnolia Street, the one where you meet your book club every Thursday at 2 p.m. Dylan's hands clenched. "You tried to sabotage her promotion. The same way she tried 2 years ago," I added. "Except this time. My boss called me directly. We traced the email together. He's prepared to testify about workplace harassment." Margaret's carefully maintained facade cracked further. "That's not I would never. Router logs don't lie. Mom." Dylan pulled out his phone, showing data streams I'd asked him to analyze. "Your phone's MAC address, connecting to their Wi-Fi, sending that email at 2:17 p.m. Last Thursday?" Detective Bledsoe had moved to the service station, openly taking notes now. "There's more," I said, voice steady despite my racing heart. "Tara, my colleague, pulled our internal security footage. You visited our office 6 times in the past year, always when I was in meetings. You told reception you were dropping off lunch for me. So I'm a caring mother-in-law who never actually left lunch. Instead, you accessed my desk, my computer. Looking for what? Exactly weaknesses. Passwords material for your next anonymous complaint." Luis returned with a water pitcher, though no glasses needed filling. He was stalling, providing presence as a witness. His hands still shook, but determination had replaced fear in his eyes. "Mrs. Hale," he said formally. "Should I tell them about the other thing?" Margaret's head snapped toward him. "What other thing?" "The proposal you made yesterday, about Mr. Hart." "You lying little, I have the recording." Luis pulled out his phone. "You offered me $2,000 to put Rohypnol in his drink, said he was showing signs of his father's instability, that he needed intervention before he hurt someone." Dylan stood so fast his chair toppled backward. "Rohypnol, the date rape drug." "It's a sedative," Margaret said quickly, "prescribed for severe anxiety." "It's a controlled substance that causes memory loss," I interjected. "Perfect for creating gaps that you could fill with whatever narrative you wanted. Were you planning to have Dylan committed use the promotion money for his treatment? Or were you going to kill me too?" Dylan's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Like Dad." Margaret's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. I pulled out the final piece of evidence, a printout from a private investigator. "Richard wasn't your first husband, was he? Margaret Thomas Brennan, married 1987, died 1991, heart failure at 34. No previous health conditions?" The silence stretched taut as piano wire. Different state, different life insurance company, but the same pattern. Sudden illness, dedicated wife managing treatment, unexpected death, substantial payout. Thomas had a congenital condition. Thomas was a marathon runner. I produced a newspaper clipping. Completed Boston 3 months before his death. His family suspected foul play but couldn't prove anything. His sister, Patricia Brennan Myers, is very interested in talking to Detective Bledsoe. Margaret's transformation was complete from polished matron to cornered animal. You can't prove anything from 30 years ago. No, but patterns matter. 2 dead husbands, 1 poisoned daughter-in-law, plans to drug your son. The insurance companies will connect those dots. "Even if they can't prosecute for Thomas or Richard," Detective Bledsoe said, finally approaching our table. "Attempted poisoning and conspiracy to commit assault are very current crimes. Mrs. Hale, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning." "This is entrapment," Margaret shrieked. "They set me up." "You set yourself up," Bledsoe replied calmly. "Multiple times. Luis, I'll need your recordings and a formal statement. Mrs. Hart, please bring all your documentation to the station tomorrow. Margaret turned to Dylan one last time. Everything I did was for our family. For our legacy. Our family. Dylan's voice broke. You destroyed our family. You killed my father. You tried to kill my wife. You were planning to destroy me. What family? The one I was building. The one where we stayed together, where no one abandoned anyone, where I wasn't left alone again like when Thomas died, like when your father tried to leave. She stopped, realizing what she'd just admitted. Thomas didn't just die, did he? I asked softly. You killed him too, because he was going to leave you. Margaret's face contorted. He promised forever. They all promised forever. But they lied. They all tried to leave. Richard with his divorce papers, you with your career ambitions, Dylan pulling away month by month. Nobody was supposed to leave. The mask hadn't just slipped, it had shattered entirely, revealing the void beneath. This wasn't about money or control. It was about abandonment, twisted into something monstrous. Mrs. Hale, Detective Bledsoe said firmly, you need to come with me now. Why, Margaret looked around wildly at Luis, at the other diners who'd started noticing the commotion, at her son who wouldn't meet her eyes, at me sitting calmly with my assembled evidence. I want my lawyer, she said, voice hollow. That's your right, but you're coming with me either way. Bledsoe's hand moved to her cuffs. We can do this quietly, or I'll walk. Margaret straightened her spine, summoning the last dregs of dignity. I'll walk out on my own. But as she stood, her heel caught on her chair leg. She stumbled, grabbing the table for support, and her purse tumbled open. Out spilled the contents wallet, keys, lipstick, and a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. Everyone froze. Luis whispered, That's what she wanted me to use. Detective Bledsoe immediately secured the vial with a napkin, dropping it into an evidence bag she pulled from her jacket. Mrs. Hale, what's in this vial? Margaret's face had gone gray. Vitamins. We'll test that. Bledsoe's voice was steel. Luis, is this what she showed you? Yes, that's exactly it. I stood slowly, picking up the microphone I'd hidden in the centerpiece. Margaret, everyone deserves to know what you really are. Before she could respond, I walked to the service station where Robert had set up the connection to the restaurant's sound system. With his nod of permission, I plugged in my phone. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying through the dining room speakers. I apologize for the disruption, but you're sitting near a woman who murdered 2 husbands and tried to poison me. The restaurant went silent. Forks suspended midway to mouths, conversations dying mid-word. I hit play on Luis's recording. Margaret's voice filled the space. He's showing signs of addiction, erratic behavior. He needs intervention before it's too late. Just a mild sedative in his wine. I'll handle the rest. Then came her confession from moments ago, raw and unfiltered. Nobody was supposed to leave. The dining room erupted. Phones appeared, recording. Someone called out, Is this real? Very real. Detective Bledsoe announced, Badge visible. This is an active investigation. Please remain seated. Margaret tried to run, but her legs buckled. She grabbed at tablecloths, sending plates crashing, her designer heels slipping on spilled wine. The poised, controlled woman who'd entered 90 minutes ago was gone, replaced by something feral and desperate. You destroyed everything, she screamed at me. You poisonous little bitch. You turned my son against me. No, Margaret. I kept my voice calm, steady, knowing dozens of phones were recording. You destroyed everything. Thomas Brennan, Richard Hart, almost me, almost Dylan. How many others were there? She lunged at me, but Bledsoe caught her, expertly spinning her around and securing the cuffs. Margaret Hale, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, attempted poisoning, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I should have used more. Margaret shrieked. Should have made sure you never woke up from that drive. Bledsoe continued reading Miranda rights while Margaret thrashed, her perfect hair coming undone, makeup streaming down her face. The entire restaurant watched in stunned silence as Fort Collins' most refined widow was dragged out in handcuffs, still screaming about betrayal and abandonment. Dylan stood frozen by our overturned table, tears streaming down his face. I approached him slowly, unsure if he'd accept comfort from me. "Eva," he whispered, "my father. She really killed him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He collapsed into my arms, sobbing like the broken child he'd probably always been under Margaret's control. Around us, the restaurant slowly returned to life-shocked whispers, clinking glasses, the soft jazz still playing as if nothing had happened. Louise approached tentatively. "Mrs. Hart, I know apologies aren't enough, but—" "You came forward," I said. "That took courage. We're even." Robert appeared with a bottle of scotch. "On the house, all of it. Jesus Christ, in 30 years of restaurant management, I've never—" He shook his head. "That woman killed 2 people. "At least," I said, accepting the drink with shaking hands. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared, sliding them across to Dylan. "I understand if you can't forgive me for exposing her like this, for destroying your image of her. These are signed. You just need to—" Dylan took the papers and tore them in half. "She was going to kill me. Eva, my own mother was going to— and you saved me. You saved both of us." "Actually," Detective Bledsoe said, returning from securing Margaret in the squad car, "she saved quite a few people. Sophie Martinez, the server Margaret tried to hire this week. She was being pressured to poison 3 different family members at an anniversary party. The Hendersons apparently Margaret had some financial dispute with them." My phone buzzed with notifications. The recordings were already going viral. Someone had live-streamed the arrest. Comments poured in, "Black Widow in Fort Collins," and "Restaurant Takedown of the Century." But I didn't care about internet fame. I watched Dylan process his grief, his loss, his narrow escape. Watched Louise finally shed 2 years of guilt. Watched Detective Bledsoe methodically document evidence that would put Margaret away for decades. "What happens now?" Dylan asked. "Now we rebuild," I said. "Without her shadow, without her poison, we rebuild." He squeezed my hand. Together, I thought about the promotion, the equity, the future Margaret had tried to steal. Then I looked at my husband, really looked at him for the first time in years, not as Margaret's son, but as a man who'd just learned his entire life was built on murder and lies, who'd chosen truth over comfortable delusion. "Together," I agreed. The storm outside had broken, rain washing the windows clean. In the distance, sirens wailed as Margaret was driven away from our lives forever. The restaurant slowly returned to normal couples resuming dates, families finishing meals, life continuing despite the drama they'd witnessed. Louise cleared our table, setting it fresh as if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. Everything had changed. I raised my scotch in a toast to the empty chair where Margaret had sat. "To the truth," I said. "However painful, however destructive, to the truth." Dylan clinked his glass against mine. "To survival. To justice," Louise added softly. We drank, the bourbon burning away the last of my fear. Margaret was gone. The shadows she'd cast were lifting. For the first time in 2 years, maybe for the first time in my entire marriage, I could breathe freely. My phone showed the email I'd scheduled to Dylan now unnecessary. I deleted it, along with years of accumulated evidence, backup plans, and defensive strategies. I didn't need them anymore. The war was over. I had won, not with violence or poison or manipulation, but with truth served cold and precisely, like revenge should be. Margaret had set this table herself, years ago, with every lie, every dose, every calculated cruelty. All I'd done was make sure everyone got a taste. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts on this tale of revenge and justice. Your perspectives mean everything to me.